Thank you so much for participating in our InspirAsians interview series. Could you begin by telling us a little bit about who you are, your preferred pronouns, what school you attend, what grade you're in, and a fun fact or two that everybody should know about you?
So hi, I'm Parker. My preferred pronouns are he, him, and I go to Aragon High School. And I'm in 11th grade, so I'm a junior. And a fun fact or two, I when I'm passionate about things, I am also like ambitious about them, and I will try to my hardest to get to that end goal.
That's awesome. And could you tell us a little bit about your background and your family?
All right, so I'm Filipino, and like there's a little bit of Chinese mixed in there, and my family is so I'm kind of adopted, um, so like my family is like amazing, both sides. Some like in there's one family in Philippines and then there's one here, which is where I am, um, and I think that's all.
So, how has being Asian kind of, shaped who you are and how you view the world and how you talk to other people, things like that?
Well, I think like being like Asian, I think it's more like difficult in aspects of like the stereotypes given to us, especially in academics. I think it makes me try to work harder on the academics because it's not my forte. It's not something I'm like really skilled at doing. I have to try my hardest at that, even though like the stereotype is like, oh, all Asians are good at math, but I am terrible at math. So I try to break that stereotype, but also not be bad at math, that kind of thing. I basically focus on the academics a lot.
I totally get that. And I think the little minority myth and all of that is super harmful and also just, yeah, needs to be broken down.
Yeah.
So, have people in your life generally been supportive and understanding of your identity?
Yeah, I'm actually really happy that like the people in my life, especially the people I'm closest to, accepted me. Even if they didn't understand at first, they didn't like shame me for who I am. They didn't like think I was gross or weird. They're like, okay, I'll try to understand this. It could take a while, and that's just how it is. But the fact that they are trying to understand for me, it's just a really like good feeling to have.
And how has being a member of the LGBTQ plus community changed your worldview and the way that you approach people?
Oh, I think being LGBTQ, like a part of the community, would change my worldview basically because I used to think that when I was like straight and like a girl, when I was like an 11-year-old or like a 10-year-old, I didn't know that like being gay was a bad thing to people. I didn't know that people thought it was bad. So I used to always think that everyone just liked each other and there's like no hate at all. I was an innocent kid who thought everything like everything was normal. Like even like girls liking girls, I thought that was normal. I didn't know there was terms for it. And then when I like came out and stuff, I had to learn that there are people who don't understand and won't try to understand the community, and it just changed like my views on like how I see people, and it's just like, oh, maybe this person doesn't exactly agree with it and stuff. There's more education behind it and stuff.
And have you ever noticed a stigma or a lack of education surrounding LGBTQ plus individuals within the Asian community that have made people less likely to come out to their close ones?
Yeah, I have, and a lot of that experiences from like watching like Filipino TV shows, where a lot of like the gay people or like trans people are like misinterpreted or like misrepresented. Like there's wrong terms for those like trans people and like trans girls or trans guys, and different words for like gay people. So I think there's like a lack of education, and people don't try to educate them that there is specific words, specific terms for these identities, and they're not like, and like trans people are actually a thing, and that they should have like those kinds of rights, because people don't exactly think in Philippines that it is a thing. It's not exactly covered in Philippines that well, and it does like make people less likely to come out to their close ones, because of the fact that like if people don't exactly believe that trans people are a thing, it's just kind of hard to say like, oh, hi mom, I'm trans, to their, especially if they don't know how they're going to react.
How has seeing the stigma affected you personally, and how would you address that, this issue be addressed?
Um, most people just was like thought I was lesbian or something, because I was like, yeah, I'm trans, and then they're like, wait, isn't that just lesbian? And I'm like, no, that's not even, that's a sexuality. That's not anything near what trans is. So I just had to be patient with them and tell them like, lesbian and transgender is a completely different thing. One is like being uncomfortable with like your body and stuff, and one is you have a sexual preference, or like any kind of preference towards women. So I suggest like just educating them and trying to be patient, and if they really just don't try to understand, then if you have the patience, just keep trying. If not, you're just gonna have to stop.
And if you are comfortable doing so, would you describe any of the hardships or difficulties that you've encountered personally as an Asian member of the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, I think so. My sexuality is unlabeled. I don't have a label for my sexuality. I don't think it should be labeled for me. So I think in like 2018, I think I came out as bi to like my biological family, and while the chat in the group chat, it was kind of like awkward. Like my parents didn't know what that meant and thought it was like a disease or something. Um, yeah, and then my siblings were just quiet in the background, like, wait, what? Oops, my bad. Yeah, they were just quiet in the background, and I was like, no, bisexual means like being attracted to two genders, but they still didn't understand that. So, and even when I came out as trans, they still don't use my like the name that I chose, so like, which is like Parker. They still use like my dead name, so it's kind of hard to keep repeating that I'm trans and that I use he him pronouns and that my name is Parker, because it's kind of like, it's just common sense to use the name and pronouns that people use. So it kind of gets hard to keep repeating that kind of information, and it gets like, yeah, it gets difficult too.
And this next question also ties in a bit with what we kind of discussed earlier, but what is one important aspect of being both Asian and a member of the LGBTQ plus community that you think others generally don't know but should know?
I think that people should know that there's a lot of LGBTQ plus people in the Asian community. If it may seem like you're like pretty alone in like being the identity you are, it may seem like that, especially since you don't really see that around you in your like family members or like even your friends. But there are many of them, like especially like many trans people and like gay people and lesbian people. I think that there are people like who are Asian that are like you, and that you shouldn't think that you're alone in that, and you should at least try to find that person, even if they aren't like your best friend or like a family member, someone you can look up to as well. It does help, and it does help yourself when you see that other people are like you. It does inspire you.
Thank you, Parker. I think that's a really powerful message for our audience. Um, and why did you decide to become president of GSA Club at Aragon High School, and what does the club agenda mostly look like?
So when basically when I was a middle schooler, I used to be the vice president when I was in eighth grade, I used to be the vice president of the GSA club we had at Burrell. Then when we moved to Aragon, the only club I was thinking of was GSA. I gotta join GSA. And when I got there, I realized like so many people weren't out, and that the fact that it's like GSA was mostly like a safe place for people who aren't out to their families or out to the school, just not out in general. And I just wanted to make more of a safe place for everyone, and to like remind everyone that it's like they don't have to come out and stuff, like that they know that they're like safe there. I just want to make a safe place for everyone, even allies as well, because even allies are like, people think they're a part of the LGBTQ plus community just because they're allies. So I wanted to make a safe place for people who are in the LGBTQ plus community at Aragon, and hopefully try to get that safe place in the room that we have GSA Club in, out of like the room, and also like around the school, and try to get it out of the school and to the whole district kind of thing. I was just inspired to let people know who are like, especially those who are closeted, that like they're not alone, and they shouldn't feel ashamed of who they are. And it is hard to come out, so I understand that, but they also don't need to, kind of thing. Like, who they are is who they are. They don't need to tell people. They don't need to be obligated to tell people that.
Could you also describe other roles you hold at school and the initiatives that you take on?
I'm also a Filipino Club officer. I'm a secretary there. I'm going to be vice president next year because I really want Filipino Club to keep going, because I think last year they got like disbanded because all of the members were seniors, and I feel like Filipino Club should represent a lot of the Filipino culture, and I know that a lot of people like Filipino food, so I just want people to know more about like Filipino culture and Filipino history. And I also I do link crew, and that's a leadership role, and I think that also, while being a link crew leader and a GSA like president, it helps me try to get more people to like see that GSA is a thing at Aragon, basically like kind of like promo for the club, so that, because a lot of people, they don't see like the dashboard on Canvas or the dashboard at school, like in person school, or they don't see like their emails and stuff. So it's I feel like some people who don't have access to that, or they don't look at that, but they want to be a part of GSA, or they want to find a safe place for like a safe place for themselves, I think gives me like more people to reach out to by being a part of like other clubs and other like leadership roles.
And what is something that people believe is helpful to the Asian LGBTQ plus community, but is actually not helpful to them?
Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting question. I think it like all comes back to like terms and stuff. They place terms on people, like a lot of labels on people, even though they didn't exactly disclose labels within themselves. So I think that is kind of harming towards the Asian LGBTQ plus community, because I feel like not a lot of people would like educate those people who don't know anything. So I think like putting terms on people, like labels, isn't helpful.
Definitely. I think labels can be really harmful. And what should supporters be doing to uplift the Asian LGBTQ plus community?
I think showing more representation in like TV shows and stuff, movies, books. We've seen a lot of like non-canonical like LGBTQ plus representation in like TV shows. I couldn't give you examples because I can't think of any on the top of my head, but I know there's some out there. There's at least like a few, but I think there should be more representation, or at least more like sharing of that representation, especially like a lot of people don't know that kind of representation. Like if they don't have social media or they don't watch TV, and it's just vice versa. Just I think sharing that there are people who are like Asian and LGBTQ plus would help, which like the InspirAsians thing that you guys are doing, I think that will definitely like give representation as well to the Asian LGBTQ plus community.
We definitely hope to do so. And what is one message you want to give to LGBTQ plus youth who are looking to create positive change for others?
For the who are looking to come out to their families, I'd give you the tip to, or like the advice to do it when you're ready. Don't force yourself to come out, and if someone forces you to come out, that's like really unfair to you. So you should always come out on the basis of you, and you should not come out on like because you feel bad that someone doesn't know that you're the LGBTQ plus like a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And like coming out to family is like really hard because they've known you your whole life. So of course it's going to be difficult to change what they have, like what the idea that they have about you. But you got to remember that the ideas that people have about you is not who you are. It's like you are who you are, basically. You know yourself the most. You probably heard that a lot, but you do know yourself the most. That's why it's been said a lot. And you're just gonna have to be confident about yourself, and or try to be. And the the expectations your family puts on you that you're like straight or that you're cis has nothing to do with anything. And you're just gonna have to disregard the fact that they used to think of you like that, and who want to create positive change for others. I think something like a key aspect that I had that got a lot of people to be comfortable with coming out to me specifically, and to talk to me and ask for advice or help is I don't really care what people think about me. I'm really confident in about the fact that I am a trans guy and that I am an unlabeled sexuality. So people see that it seems like I'm really nonchalant about what people think about me. I think that helps to show people that like it's okay to be confident about that. It's okay to be confident about being Asian, and it's okay to be confident about being trans or gay or lesbian. It doesn't diminish anyone else. It's okay to be confident because it does show like other people like, oh, if they're confident, maybe like I could ask them like advice and stuff like that. And I think they would be more comfortable with you like coming out or asking you for help. And I think giving like a comfortable space or safe space for someone to like talk to you, I think is really good, because if they're looking for someone out of their friend group or their family, I think they would really need someone out of that, out of the space that they're already in. So I like try to help people.
For sure. Thank you, Parker. And while you are definitely an inspiration to many, both as a role model in your own community, president of GSA Club, and a club officer for Filipino Club, who is an inspiration to you?
There's like this Filipino actor called Grace Xia, and I think the first movie I saw of him was Private Benjamin. And when I watched that movie, I just like, I think I was like a young kid, and when I saw like the way he was acting in the way he was. I was like, whoa, that person's like really cool and confident and funny. And I continue to watch Vice Ganda, like movies and TV shows, because like they don't care what people think about them, and they always put like powerful messages behind like funny, like, you know how there's like a comedic relief in like dramatic TV shows and stuff. This is kind of like the opposite. Like the whole movie is a comedic relief, and then you're gonna have like a tense, like dramatic moment that is really special to everyone. And all of those moments, like the dramatic scenes in his movies, are like something I always looked forward to in the movies. Even though the whole movie is funny, I always look forward to what's the message behind the movie now. And sometimes there's like messages about how like to be confident and like to not care about what others think. And there's just a lot of like inspiration in those movies, even though it may seem like ridiculous, like kind of plot. There's always something behind it. And every time I do like writing or like other things, or like when I text people, sometimes I add like really dramatic messages in the middle of nowhere, because sometimes it does help. um, like a dramatic relief, I guess. Um, yeah, so I think I learned how to be confident from Baiskinda. Oh yeah, I gained a lot of confidence in myself, um, about being trans and like LGBTQ plus community and being Filipino from Baiskinda. Um, and it may seem ridiculous to some people who are Filipino who know who Baiskinda is, but that's just who I think is an inspiration to me.
I think that's awesome, and thank you so much for sharing. Those are basically all the questions that I had for you, but is there anything else that you would like to add?
Um, I think that people should remember like that there are so many people who's gonna like love them. Um, like there are a lot of people who are gonna accept you, and even though it seems like right now you only have one person or like zero who accept you for who you are, just know that there are gonna be people out there. Um, you're not gonna be left to the dust not being loved one for being um, LGBTQ plus community, especially if your family doesn't accept you. It doesn't mean people outside, like, it doesn't mean like people, there are like zero people in your family who would accept you. I bet there are some that just won't show up until later. Um, and also remember that like your friends are there too.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed and for coming to this interview.